Hey, Jay, thanks for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate you driving out here from Virginia and everything. And, some of my audience might not know this, but, we've been friends for a long time. It's like been 25 years. And I just want to say thanks for, taking the time to come out here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, why I started this podcast is really to inspire, people like in their 30s to 40s, they're trying to get their career going and want to go to that next level.
Sure.
That we've experienced, and when I thought about you and I knew a lot about, so we've known each other for a long time, and just you've done some incredible things with your business and where you were before. You bought Artisan2, which is die cutting, full stamping. I want you to talk about that too.
Great.
And so anyways, yeah, just tell us about how did you get into this into the printing business?
Well, first and foremost, I am from New Jersey. I learned to play lacrosse there. I moved there when I was probably in 8th grade, but learned to play lacrosse pretty quickly. Never big enough to do anything in football and things like that. So I was recruited down to Maryland to play lacrosse, and I started at UMBC, won the Division II National Championship, and then from there I got recruited by Maryland, and Maryland brought me in, and I ended up having a great career there, and was captain my senior year in 1983. So, no, 1984. It should have been 83. I redshirted for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that brought me down to Maryland, and I ended up staying and have been here ever since. Interesting side note to that is one of the guys that I was teammates with was Jim Wilkerson. And I don't know if you knew Jimmy Wilkerson or Jim, his dad.
Okay.
And he was in printing supplies for Maryland Graphic Arts or something like that. Very successful. And he knew Ronnie Bray from French Bray in Baltimore. And so he said, Ronnie, it was after a game and at a tailgate, and he said, Ronnie's looking for a new recruit. You remember a guy named Tom Jasper?
No, I don't remember Tom, but I know, Bray,
Sure.
Yep.
So Tom was their first trainee, went to William & Mary, was a basketball player, and they wanted an athlete. And so I went and talked to him. He introduced me to Jim Mays, who ended up being a partner of mine for 20 years. Yep. And but the rest is history. We had a great first meeting. They had me take, you talked about some of the tests and different things that you've done for training. They had a caliper test, which tells you whether you're suited for sales or what you're suited for. And I apparently did fairly well on that. And the rest is history. They hired me, trained me. They were a union shop.
Oh, okay.
And so a number of people got upset at my training because I ran equipment and did things like that. Really gave me some good experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow, that's wild.
Yep.
So you started off in sales there, and then transferred to Colorcraft?
Well, so it started off. I was hired. I think one of the smartest things that they did, and this speaks a bit to our earlier conversations about young people and mentoring younger people and training properly. They trained me for nearly a year on the inside, learning all the equipment, learning the ins and outs of the business and how the business was actually run. And from there, and it was the entire plan was to go into sales. So once they felt like I was ready, boom, they put me on the street. I had a distinct advantage in that, and this isn't always an advantage, not so much these days. I looked older than I was.
Oh, okay.
And so most every customer that I went to thought I had been in printing sales for 20 years. And so I was trained well and knew what I was talking about. And they had confidence in me because they thought I was older.
Yeah.
So I jumped right into it and took off pretty quickly. And about 2.5 years into it, Jim Mays, who was the vice president in charge of sales at French Bray, had an opportunity to buy Colorcraft. And Marshall Painter was the owner of Colorcraft for what it's worth. Okay. Small company. It was only doing about $4 million in sales. And Jim said, I will sell you part of the company to bring your sales and come with me. And I ended up doing that and stayed with him for 20 years. And we took Colorcraft to about 20 million in sales.
I mean, you really grew that company. It was amazing. I mean, I remember you probably didn't know me at that time, but a long time ago, when we were just doing negatives at Art Negative, I used to deliver negatives over to you, and so I just remembered, having those really brand new presses and stuff. It was like just amazing. You know what I mean? You guys did super high end work. It was really cool. We did a really nice job. I think I'll just say this, and not to have any negatives, but I literally left Colorcraft, and I'm the director of sales at the time. I probably had 15 salespeople under me, and maybe at the time 10 or 12, but I ended up leaving because the vice president in charge of manufacturing and Jim, the president, were constantly buying equipment. And this was at a time when the industry was starting to contract. Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, twice I said, no, I'm not in on this. The first time they listened to me, the second time they got a little more upset. It was maybe a year later or whatever. And unfortunately, the industry, and I'm watching numbers, and numbers were going down. And I'm saying, I don't think that we should invest quite that much. We don't need a piece of equipment that's much more efficient, because the number of jobs and the size of the jobs were getting smaller. Yeah. So suffice to say that partnerships can be difficult, and I chose to move on, and I probably took 10 cents on the dollar for my shares. Just because I decided to leave.
Kind of going back on that, on your story about, what interests me is, okay, and I know how hard it is to build a sales team in the graphic arts world. I mean, it's not easy.
Right.
And to go up to 12, 15 reps, that's a big accomplishment. And I'm sure you had to put a lot of systems in place to kind of regulate that, because as we know, sometimes the sales reps can be mavericks and just be a little bit, you know what I mean?
There's no question about it. I'll say when we kept it simple, it was much more effective. Mm-hmm. In other words, pay them a decent percentage and keep it flat, and don't complicate all of the particulars, like bumps and different things like that. Yeah. And, people tend to gravitate toward money and lose sight of the customer and lose sight of some things that were, in my view, pretty important. So, but we had some great systems in place. I think there was a good balance between the manufacturing side of things, the sales side of things, and then Jim, who oversaw it all with banking and all the rest of it. So we were smart with our money and smart with our time and our people. And, I like to think that I can read people fairly well, and whether it's the salespeople or a sales trainee or, someone on the inside, I tried to understand what the problems were and what
Yeah.
the solutions could
Yeah.
be. So,
Well, and it's a good testament to, you know, as you were building the company with them and seeing on, you know, the writing on the wall, like, hey, you know, it looks like it's going to start, you know, contracting. Maybe we need to slow it down on the purchasing and so forth like that. So, you know, running a business, sometimes you have to just you pull back on the reins a little bit, you know, and be careful so it doesn't, you know, sink the ship per se.
right. And it's normally not the salesperson who is the one wanting to pull the reins back. It's the salesperson who's saying, buy 5 more pieces of equipment. You know, it's the finance guys and the guys on the inside that would be the ones who might be controlling that a little more. I was just paying attention to the market and paying attention to where our sales were going and where they were growing and where they were, you know, falling back. And to me, it just didn't make sense.
And another thing that really got my attention is I remembered when you left, and a lot of people in the industry were shocked, like, wow, and I can't imagine the nervousness of making that jump. And so tell me about that. And we never really talked about that part, but I remember it was Max was running Artisan2, right?
That's true.
But I didn't know exactly how that all, you know, came about.
I'll try to give you the brief. I'm not brief with anything I talk about, but I'll try to give the brief. So I definitely left Colorcraft prior to any offer or anything happening with Max Janoff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I saw some of the things that were happening in the industry. I can't say that I was Nostradamus and predicted that the printing industry was going to contract like it did at that level, but I definitely saw some things happening. At the same time, I own some property in Costa Rica, and my roommate and teammate at Maryland, he was a Wall Street guy, and long and short, he got out of Wall Street in 2021, right after 9/11, and he ended up taking a surf trip by himself, 2 weeks, came back, went to his wife and said, we're moving to Florida, and I'm calling Harkey because I think there's some opportunity in Costa Rica. About a month later, we bought our first farm. And so that's where it started. And
you're going to be a farmer and get out of printing?
Well, I have been. We have teak wood on our farms. And, and teak,
so you still have the farm?
We still have half of the farm. We bought a fairly sizable amount of acreage. And again, I thought at the time, you know what? I'm going to get out of printing. I'm going to start developing this property. This is going to be my new future. Now, there was no income coming from it, so it was not terribly prudent. Mm-hmm. But I happened to have read a magazine, a business magazine, Forbes or something, and the long and short of it was there was a great article with the guy who owned ABC Roofing. And I'm not remembering his name right now, but he basically said, you can own multiple businesses and manage your time properly. You can do lots of things. And so I kind of took that to heart. In that interim between leaving Colorcraft, Jim asked me to stay a number of months on after I resigned, so that I would get to 20 years. Not that it meant anything economically, but it was a milestone, I guess. Uh-huh. And the long and short, in that time period, Max Janoff recognized, just like you said, why is this guy leaving the printing industry? I had a lot of success, and I had a lot of in sales, and I tried to use the 3 months to take my accounts and assign them to personalities that would fit with the customer.
Okay.
And that kind of went by the wayside since I was leaving, and they made their own decisions with things. But also at the same time that all this was happening, Max approached me and said, "Jay, I'm 76 years old. I'm tired. How would you like to take over my business?" And Max, if you remember Max.
I was going to say, I remember Max, and I remember how his business was. It was not clean in there. It was, I mean, I think it was just barely holding on. I mean, I don't know. I just know that when you walked in there, you had a lot of work to do.
That's an understatement. Well, I'll give you the real brief on the progression of that. So Max basically said, 76 years old, I'm tired. How'd you like to take over my business? And I said I didn't say it that night, but probably later in that week, Max, thanks very much for the offer, but I'm really not interested. And Max came back to me. He basically said, take a look at the books. And, we looked at the books. It looked okay. And there was something to work with there. And I said no again. And I said no a third time. And then after the third time, he said, look, I really think that you could do great guns with this business. And I looked at it, and to your point, this was an old jalopy that was not cared for, but had good people, produced an unbelievable product. And I thought, okay, maybe if I do a little cleanup and put some systems in place.
Yeah.
I built an estimating system that became a proposal system that became a jacket system, and we began to rotate dies and different things like that out of the system so that we weren't completely overwhelmed space-wise and all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we put systems in place.
Yeah.
And again, actually on the third time that Max asked me, I said, let me look at some things. And I read the article somewhere in that 2-week window. Next thing you know, I ended up buying the business. And the rest is history. So,
yeah. Well, I know. I mean, I've seen you where you've taken it, and it's amazing. I mean, the place is beautiful. The work that you're doing is amazing, and I'd like to talk a little bit about like what interests me is about you is that how you took something. This is an old business. This is an old trade, and you pivot. You thought of a different avenues to go into, and I remember you telling me your son was a lawyer, and he had said, "Hey, Dad, you should go to one of these lawyer conventions. They do these really nice print stuff." And tell me about that again. I mean, I thought that was very interesting.
Well, he did get me thinking about that as an option or an avenue, and we did some work for law firms. But as you know, so one of the reasons that Max was interested in me was because I knew the printing industry, but I was now no longer on the print side. 99.9% of his customer base were printers.
Yeah.
I never went out and sought work outside of the business that was already there. Until much later, when my son went to law school and said these guys have all this stuff. Lawyers are also extremely cheap. So unless you're with a massive firm that has a marketing person who understands the advantage of giving somebody engraving or foil embossing or whatever, they really don't want to pay for it. So I think the avenue that I went that was much more important to me was making sure that people understood the advantage of what we did, whether it's a printer or it was a client direct. And like I said, my background and my history is in sales, but But I never went out and sought, your customers or anything
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But that's it. See, and that one, the part with you getting in with these weddings and these invitations,
Right.
which are, if anybody's listening to this, to go to his website, artisan2.com, right?
Artisan2Inc.com.
Inc.com, and see the work that he's doing. It's amazing, and I mean it's beautiful. So to make that little bit of a change or pivot into that market, which us printers really aren't even touching that. We're not even interested in that type of stuff, and how you started that and how you grew that.
Well, once again, it was probably more of a natural progression because we would have a bride. Well, let me back up. The probably the greatest growth for us is. Do you remember an agency called Lolly? It was over off of 301.
No.
She used to do lots of high-end invitations and things like that, whether it's wedding, whether it was birthdays, or whether it was corporate. And they were going out of business. And I think they first tried to sell, and then that fell apart, and the people that bought them were in North Carolina or something. It went down. And I had been, always trying to get exposure at a show up in New York at the Javits Center, and I ran into who is now my designer, and that was a huge pivot for us, specifically because she introduced me to a lot of markets that, because Lolly was going out of business, it opened up for us. They asked if we did thermography, and I said no, but I can foil emboss, and it looks better, and it's a higher end look. Long and short, we started doing work for stationers all over the country, and not only did we get exposure that way, but we saw what we could do in the wedding business, and again, you wouldn't think the wedding business would be that strong, but it's, I think the average wedding in this country right now is like $100,000 or something. And if one little portion of it is the printing, then so be it.
Yeah, it's just amazing what they'll spend.
It's wild. Yeah. And there are brides that really want to do things and do them super high end, and we can do it. I mean, the big difference is most of the high-end brides are going to something like a Bella Figurina, which is in New York, that does these things. They will show them what they've done. They will then say, okay, we need a month for design, a month for manufacturing, and, we're COD, and they're expensive because they're having all these different things manufactured in different places. We do it all. We do everything right there. The biggest delay for us is finding paper, but I also know paper from being in the printing industry, and so it was somewhat of an easy transition to go into that and provide them with options and kind of tell them what they need.
Yeah.
And so it
you got a couple of pieces here that you did for the White House. Amazing.
I do. There were some gifts from me to you today, and
they're gorgeous.
Yeah, we've had a wonderful opportunity there. You asked earlier, how the heck did you fall into the White House? And interestingly enough, and again, if I run too long, just tell me.
Fine.
But Dave Clough, who was the Nina paper rep for the East Coast, he called me sometime in early summer of 2016, I think it was, and he basically said, "Hey, I've been approached by a customer." And I'll go ahead and give it away because it was the Trump administration. And in fairness, they didn't have a group of people behind them that knew every little facet of what they needed to do. that I am presuming that someone said, let's call Neenah Paper because they've got the best paper made in the country. And they do. They
do have good stuff.
Wonderful stuff. And so Dave had been to my shop a month earlier because he contacted me and he said, I'm seeing my paper all over the place, except it's one sheet and it's two different sheets, like Star Dreams on a Neenah Classic or whatever it is. Long and short, he came in to see what we do, and we do some pretty creative things and never say no to anybody. If someone tells us what they want, we'll do it, within reason.
Yeah.
And so, again, I explained to Dave, gave him a full tour. Fast forward a month, and ironically, the Trump 45 administration contacted him and gave him the parameters of the job. And I remember it was my wife's birthday. It was August 15th. We were down at our beach house, and he gave me this call, gave me the parameters. He said, can you handle that? And I said, without a doubt. Now,
nice.
In fairness, I probably was 3 wines in at the time, but I still was able to do it. Now, as well as anybody, being in the printing industry, we shy away from government work because of pay. And so I had a list of 15 items that they had to do. Dave, in that same phone call, said to me, Jay, so the second question they have is, how soon do they need to get started? August 15th. I said, you're 6 weeks late right now. Oh my gosh. So long and short, we got a meeting with the White House, and it goes through the social committee. It goes through Melania's team, Flotus's team, and she's phenomenal. She is a very good eye, totally knows what she's doing. And so
awesome.
So the long and short, they put the meeting together, and my 15th item out of 15 things was, I'm a small business. I can't buy $300,000 worth of paper and pay it out of my pocket. I need to be paid in tranches or whatever. The long and short, how it really worked well. This was through the RNC. And so we were able to set up payment properly, and one that worked for us. So it was great. And so we did the cards for all of 45. I happened to have done them for the Trumps personally for the 4 years that they were out of office, and we just did the card that you got is the 9th one I've done for them.
It's a beautiful piece. I mean, like I said, you do some awesome work.
Thank you.
So what are some other questions I want to ask you? I have a question here. So what do you think your biggest hurdle was within your business career?
It's fairly easy, and it's probably the same one that you've experienced over time, and being associated with the industry. It's the amount of change. We've gone through some super highs. When I started in the business, it was 1984, and there was a high growth potential, and was for a good many years. And then, a few recessions happened, some things in 91, some things in 2007, and there was a big retraction. And I think from my perspective, a big factor there was the cost of printing, and people comparing that to how you could get your information electronically, the computer and all of that. Yeah. And simultaneously, and I think it happened because printing contracted, I feel like the Postal Service, threw rates so high that it prevented people from wanting to print.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember back in the day, we would do a catalog, and a catalog would be a dollar a piece to print, or 50 cents a piece, or whatever it was, and it would be 10 cents a piece, or to mail. And that completely flopped, where it was $2 to mail, and they were wanting you to be lower than the original 50 cents that it was to print 20 years earlier. So
and what is very, I mean, for us, as far as the direct mail, it's amazing how it's still getting good returns.
Good,
for the marketers. So that's been our favorite. Hopefully, knock on wood, it's going to continue to be good, in that area. I have a question for you. If you were going to give advice to somebody that was getting ready to make a pivot in their life, let's say they're in their 30s, decide, I want to start a new business, or I'm trying to, move up to corporate level, C level, whatever. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say, number one, lock into a business that you're going to be very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
If you like boating, or you like sports, or whatever it may be, lock into something that you really would like to do. In addition to that, and there might be opportunities that come your way, like there was for me and how I found Artisan, that aren't necessarily exactly in the field that you wanted to be in, or some pivot from the field that you've been in, but find something that you could have fun with.
Mm-hmm.
And that if the goal is to make money and to make a career and make a good, strong business out of it, make sure that it's generally sound. Do your research, and then look at the how your addition to it can customize it to make it yours, one, but also make it something that that can be very prosperous, can be unique in the industry, can be able to kind of soar and shine above the rest.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
but definitely do research on the business itself,
Yeah.
and understand where it's going. I've made a few mistakes when I first bought Artisan. Number one of which is an industry that was already somewhat fledgling in the printing industry. If 99% of my customer base are going through a hurting time, I'm not going into a very strong industry or business. But once again, there was opportunity with other markets there that just kind of organically grew. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't go out on the street and market to people. I basically just let people come to me, but gave them a great product to be able to do that with.
So you basically went in there and retooled it, built some systems, streamlined some things, so you could squeeze more water out of that rock, right? I mean,
well, it and then generally is reinventing yourself. And a lot of people have to reinvent themselves on a regular basis. Fortunately, we only did it. I guess you're reinventing every day, but for the most part, we have gone in a direction that has really grown. And one thing you touched on before, as it relates to the printing industry, and you talked about lawyers, you talked about weddings. One big push for me, it made me sick when the education system took cursive writing away.
Yeah.
Because what I promote all the time in what we do is sending a note to someone, stationary, actually writing, taking time. Everybody, I don't know about you all, but I probably send 100 emails a day.
Oh, exactly.
And to differentiate a thank you to, the First Lady for providing us this business, versus saying
or send an email.
Exactly. I'll see you tomorrow at 4:00.
Exactly.
There's a big difference there. The internet and email is a great tool, but there is nothing.
It takes that personality. It takes the personal touch out of that. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
and the personal touch of writing a note
Yeah.
and saying, "Hey Jim, thanks a lot for
Exactly.
having me on your podcast." It's much more meaningful
Yeah.
than just an email.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and a lot of people feel the same way.
And seeing people too. I mean, I'm like we were just talking earlier. We don't get to see our clients as much as we used to back in the day, and I miss it sometimes, you know. But when I do, you know, have lunch with a client, it's so much fun, you know, to hear about what's going on in their life and stuff, and you just, you know, just having a great conversation. You know, you just don't have those through email or sometimes not even a phone call, you know, which we barely use the phone anyway.
No,
It's like,
you're
you
spot
know,
on.
texting and sending emails and stuff like that.
Well, obviously, being in an office, there's a culture there, and you can either have a great culture and, you know, assimilate to it, or there could be a bad culture and you fix it or change it. Likewise, actually being in front of customers and knowing the culture of their business and knowing, you know, learning, like getting to know them.
Yeah,
to your point,
exactly.
It's a much easier way to understand what it is that they really want out of their projects, out of the, you know, just the flow of the projects and all the rest of it. So I miss it without a doubt.
Yeah.
Seeing people. And I think, you know, we've talked a little about younger people and, you know, how they work themselves into today's world and business. And I, without a doubt, feel like it is something that really needs to change to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
They're missing something by not being around an old guy like me that understands how it was all built and how it originated and all the rest of it.
Having, you know, it's a personal relationships and building those relationships and that type of thing. And I think it's great to have, you know, great tools. I mean, my gosh, we have AI now. We've got so many things that can, you know, make our life a lot easier and faster and stuff. But this sometimes, you know, really, you know, taking the time to see somebody and say, "Hey, man, how are you doing?
Right.
How's it going?"
Right.
You know, and then and just showing that you care. I think it goes a long way, in my personal opinion.
I couldn't agree
you know
more.
What I mean? Probably need a little bit more of that in the world, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But anyways, well, Jay, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I hope that some of our listeners will get some nuggets out of that for their business or whatever they're trying to do in their career. And, you know, thanks for being such a great friend. And maybe we'll have you back on the show again. You know, I would love that.
I would love it. I will just finally say, it kind of blew me away when you just said, yeah, we've known each other for 25 years. And it's amazing how quickly all of it goes and how fast time travels. But yeah, we have known each other.
Well, hopefully we have another
time.
25 years,
Yeah,
Jay.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, someone asked me the other day when I was planning on retiring. It was Regina from Graphic, if you know that.
Oh, yeah.
And, and she was complaining about everyone around her leaving. And I said, well, you can be pretty safe to know that I'll be around for another 50 years. So we'll see if that happens.
That's awesome.
That's all good. Well, thank you very much for having me, too.
I appreciate it.
All right.
All right.